Morning, everyone. We will start our monthly webinar, the MConnect's monthly webinar series in a minute. Just give us a second, please. All right. So we're going to actually talk about the customer journey and why it is important for a small business to know, obviously, who their customer is and from where these customers are coming from and what motivates these customers to buy from the small business, and how to make sure that these customers are coming back, as in create a loyalty, and also what we call as the advocacy in terms of referring the small business to other friends and family. All right. So briefly, a little bit about us. Founded in 2015. We are a data-driven company in the sense that we focus on restaurant marketing with an emphasis on collecting customer data and using this data to create what we call as customer engagement models. And few of our clients here includes local chains here in Dallas, Paleo's Pizza Cafe, Taco Simas, and more. All right. So we have around 57 minutes in here, and I'll try to rush through these things. And feel free to ping me with any questions you might actually have on the chat window. I'll try to get to them as and when I can. Maybe if I'm not able to get to the questions between my presentation, we'll actually get to them at the end of the presentation. And then if there are any other more questions, you also have the opportunity to reach us out, which the contact information will be provided at the end of this webinar. So we're going to actually talk about three main points here. We talk about what is customer journey, and what are the different strategies that a marketing person or a small business owner or anyone can actually have to adopt across these different stages, and also what kind of data should one look for at each of these stages, and how one can actually use this data to better their marketing strategies, right? So So I want to make sure, just hold on for a second. I am trying to see if you guys can see my screen. All right, sorry about that. Actually, I wasn't sharing my screen before, and now I think you guys can see my screen now. All right, so let me see if I can actually put this in there. All right, as I was saying, we will be discussing these 3 points now in terms of what is a customer journey, what kind of strategies should one adopt across these different stages of the customer journey, and what kind of data one should look for. All right. So at a very high level at MConnect, we actually have or we actually categorize or divide the customer journey into 5 stages, and we call this as an A to A model. So it's the awareness, engagement, acquisition, loyalty, and advocacy. And at each stage, the marketing objective or the strategies or activities that you as a marketing professional or the small business owner actually have to perform at each of these stages, the objectives are different. So based on that, your strategies would differ. Based on that, the kind of data you're looking for would differ, and based on the kind of strategies you're adopting, your channels will also change, right? So again, these are the 5 stages in what for us at mConnect that we follow when we talk about a customer journey. And this is, as again as we are saying, right, like if you look at this, these are the 5 stages where we want a person to be aware of this brand called X. That is your first awareness stage. And once a brand is or a customer is aware, or a prospective customer is aware of the brand X, then they will start like engaging with the brand. Again, the assumption is that you are targeting your customer. You're not randomly basically throwing a net and saying, I want like all the 7 billion population in the world to know about my brand. That's not it, right? Like, so basically you know who your customer is, and you know where this customer, as in like in the sense, are looking for information for that particular brand or product. So that means in the awareness stage, you need to know which platforms you need to go after, right? So that's the path you need to actually look for, right? So a customer journey is nothing but how a customer comes to know of your brand, and how they actually start interacting with your brand and making a purchase in terms of a product or a service, right? And the map in terms of, again, in the previous slides, we have actually shown like a linear map, but it need not, it most of the times it is not a linear map, in the sense that like people, if they are aware of the brand, they're not going to immediately engage with the brand, and then they'll start like buying the brand. Most of the times you need multiple touch points, in the sense like you need to constantly make them aware that the brand XYZ exists, and then they will start like interacting with the brand, and then they might actually get feedback from others, do their own research. Again, the more involved the purchase is, the longer it takes for people to basically from awareness to acquisition stage. And also it impacts in terms of the different players that come into play. Let's assume this way, right? If you're a restaurant owner, so that means the customer journey between awareness to acquisition is a shorter duration, in the sense that I'm hungry, as a customer, I'm hungry, and I want to eat like maybe a pizza. So all of a sudden I remember I can go to Pizza Hut because I have seen an ad in the last NFL game, or I saw an email coming from Domino's today, or something like that, right? But when it comes to maybe a car purchase, again, it would go through the same stages, in the sense I as a customer should be aware that, okay, I need a car, right? And then I'll start researching in terms of like going to Volvo, going to BMW, going to maybe Toyota and all other different brands, trying to do research and then making a purchase, right? But in this process of making a purchase of a car, it takes a longer journey. It involves a lot more research, whereas comparison with restaurant going decision-making process is shorter. It's an impulse purchase, but still a customer will go through this customer maps, right? So depending upon the product, and also depending upon the customer profile, the path which a customer takes in terms of making the decision, or like making a purchase decision, is completely different, right? So if you know how to start with, right, the basic assumption here is that you as a marketing professional, or as a small business owner, you know who your customer is. That is the basic premise on which we are going with. And once you know who your customer is, then you can say that, okay, how would this customer behave? What kind of messaging would they be? Would they are more like they're if I basically give them a message of saying buy one get one free, are they more prone to making the decision, and so on and so forth. So that is what is required in terms of, like, again, if you know your customer, and if you can map that customer in terms of saying that, hey, with this kind of a message, they are on this particular platform, and this is the then you can actually say that, okay, I would be fine tuning my marketing strategy according to that one. So that those are the kind of benefits that you can actually um, get when you start mapping who the customer is and how they are behaving based on different profiles and different platforms and different messages, right? And also where they are. Like, for example, we have actually done an analysis with a local restaurant, specifically on Facebook. So what we have seen is on Facebook, like 70% of the population are females. So that means our messaging for this kind of customers were around value-driven, family-oriented kind of a restaurant, and more kid-friendly kind of a restaurant. So when we have started promoting these kind of offers, where we said that, hey, the restaurant is more for families and you can get value out of it, we have seen the interactions in the sense that, like, the kind of interactions that we are seeing, the engagement from the customers have increased, and so have the sales, right? So because we were able to identify who our customer is, and also based on the kind of messaging that they are actually looking for, or that would resonate with the customer, we were able to deduce this and change our strategy in terms of, like, what kind of offers do we need to give, what kind of positioning should we actually display or portray on this particular platform. Right. So now the question is, like, it's very easy for people to say that, okay, here is the customer, and like, you can come up with different strategies and all those kind of things. But in a nutshell, like, how can you start creating this customer journey, right? To start with, again, the premise is that you should understand who your customer is. That means you should be able to know who your customer is, and based on this customer profile, you should basically be able to deduce something saying that, okay, my customer is, again, going back to the example of this the restaurant which we talked about. We have actually seen that most of the customers are females in the age group of 30 to 45 years old, with kids, and they are pretty active in their local community. So we thought that, okay, so if this is the kind of a profile that we are targeting on this platform, what would motivate them in terms of engaging with our brand? So that means we need to showcase, the content strategy should be around pictures of friends and or families having fun, pictures around birthday offers, pictures around the value meals or the lunch offers that we have, right? So once we started creating that, then we have aligned our communication in such a way that the awareness phase itself and the engagement phase, and also we are talking till now about the acquisition phase, wherein it resonates well with our customers, so that they can start, like, spending more time on the platforms or on the message that we are actually sending across. Right. So as we said, so first of all, you need to understand who your customer is. So they would know, again, this you can actually get when you actually look on Facebook. Facebook actually provides that kind of data. If you go on Google, obviously it does also provide that data. But as a general rule, you can also go to the city council's website, and you can actually look at the demographics. Typically within a given, like, a locality, they would give some kind of demographic data saying that within a city, let's assume there are like 10,000 people, and it does give saying that, heck, there's so many residents, or male, female, and all those kind of things. Another good data point would be USPS EDDM. It's the Everyday Daily Mail. It's I think it's eddm.usps.com, or you just Google EDDM, and EDDM actually gives a very detailed demographics information about when you type in a zip code, it gives you like the routes, the postal routes. And when you highlight these routes, it will give you information about how many people are there within that postal route, what are the age groups, and how much money they are making, and so on and so forth. So based on, again, you know your product. That is like, again, if you're a restaurant owner, you know that, like, if you're a diner, for example, we are started to, like, we have done an USPS campaign for a particular breakfast place that we are working with. So we actually looked at the different routes, and we looked at the product that we are selling, and we said that, hey, my product is basically geared towards XYZ with age group of X and Y, and they have to make a minimum of this. And so based on that, we actually selected the routes, and that would actually, so it would actually give me an understanding of, okay, because of that, I was able to, or we were able to actually select the routes, right? So again, that's where I know my product, I know who's buying from it, and the very first step is creating the personas. Because when we create the strategies, right, in the sense, you as a marketing person or a business owner, you should know that just sending out to a message to a wrong person, it not only incurs a cost, but also it turns off the prospective customer, saying that, why in the world am I getting this message? Because I'm not going to go to this. For example, let's take this diner as an example, or the breakfast place as an example, right? Sending it to maybe 14 or a 15-year-old kid, or maybe a 60-plus-year-old kid might not serve the purpose. In the sense, maybe I'm not saying that 60-plus-year-old, they do not come, but the probability of they getting this message and walking into the door is very less, and that's why there's no point of spending a 35 cents to send this postcard to them, right? So once you know this persona, as in like the customer profile, then you should start looking at the different touch points, in the sense that, like, okay, how are these prospective customers gonna come and get involved with your brand, in the sense that, hey, are they going to come to my website, are they going to go walk to the store, and other things, right? Like, for example, let's take this example of the pizza place I was talking about. So we know that, like, when we looked on Facebook page, we know that, like, a majority of them, 70% of the population, are females in the age group of 30 to 45 years old. And also we know that, like, these are also the parents or the whose kids actually go to the local school, right? So we actually actively engaged with the local schools as well, in terms of doing fundraisers, in terms of student appreciation, and or student recognition awards, and teacher appreciation certificates, and so on and so forth, right? So we have actually looked at all these different touch points and said, okay, at each of these touch points, how, as in, like, when they come to that particular, let's take the website, right? When anyone comes to the website, so we actually have done saying that, hey, join for your birthday module, or if it is for the first time they're coming, we want them to sign up so that they can get a free pizza or something like that, right? So based on the touch points, as in, like, the messaging also has changed, because we know that the people who are going to come to these websites, or on Facebook page, or even locally, or mostly females in the range of like 30 to 45 years old. And that's what we're actually targeting, right? And when we actually have done these touch points, right, we also are starting looking, okay, at each of these touch points, how do they behave, and how does it impact their purchase decision? in the sense that, like, if they come to the website, hey, are they willing to, as I was talking, are they willing to provide like information about specials? Like, for example, again, we run like a Monday or a Tuesday special, so that when they come, it would again pop up and will say that, hey, subscribe to these specials. And we have actually seen an increase in the number of email subscriptions as well. Right. So once we have created who the business or who a prospective customer is, and the touch points that they're actually um, touch points that these customers come in contact with from a business perspective, we started looking at, okay, what are the different things that would make them click to go from awareness to acquisition to awareness to engagement to acquisition stage, in the sense that we, again, this is the framework that we have created, and at each of these stage, like, would it be possible for us to get customer data as we go through, right? Again, as we said, like, we actually we have created a birthday module that pops up whenever a customer actually comes to the website. The same birthday module actually also goes when they actually go to our Facebook page, and we have built a bot around it where they can actually start interacting with the bot, saying, hey, do you want to join the birthday club for a free pizza and a drink on your birthday, kind of a thing, right? So this is the same thing, that, as in, again, from a framework perspective, our intention is to basically get, again, interact with the customer, engage with the customer, and try to get some pieces of, or some tidbits of their profile, so that we can start building who a customer is, and based on that we can actually better market to them, right? um, and again, as we said, right, like, what are the decision at each point, there are certain decision points, or certain threshold limits that a customer goes through, in the sense that, like, for example, if I'm a family of 2 kids, right, going out, like, might cost me around 35-40 bucks. So is it possible for me to save maybe $5 or $10 when I go to the for a family night out, right? Or I have, like, kids who are very picky, or gluten free, or something like that. So would it actually impact, as in, like, in the sense, like, if I want to go, I want to make sure that my kids actually have these gluten free options, and so on and so forth. So in the sense, at every stage of making this decision, in the sense that, like, hey, if I'm actually giving out my information, for example, like, from an engagement point of view, will I get the right returns, in the sense that, again, I'm taking this example of, like, if I have kids who are gluten or who actually has certain characteristics, where in terms of, like, dietary restrictions, I want to make sure that, like, I'm providing that information where I get some returns in terms of gluten-free options, or if I'm, like, price sensitive, I might get coupons for kids eat free when I spend $10. Or if I want to feel special, I want to basically, again, going back to the birthday module, in the sense that I want to get the feel special on my birthday, in terms of getting a coupon or saying happy birthday, and so on and so forth, right? So at each of these stage, again, from awareness to acquisition, awareness to engagement to acquisition, again, loyalty and advocacy will come in a little while, but at each of these stages, you need to make sure that you identify what is the threshold limit in terms of what the customer is looking for, and whether you, as a marketing person, can provide or answer the kind of questions that that person has, in the sense, like, what is in it for the customer in order for them to go one stage to another stage. So that's what you need to look for, and based on that, you need to change your marketing marketing message at each of these stages, right? um, Again, we are still talking in terms of the path itself, right? Again, we talked about, if I come to the website, how many people are actually clicking on order online link. So you should be able to visualize that path. If they're not able to click on that order online link, or click on specials, or again, if you have 100 people visiting your website in a given week, if all 100 of them are actually bouncing off, that means whatever message you have on the website is not right. Similarly, when you go to the Facebook page or Instagram or any other page, if people are coming to their site and not acting on that one, that means the message that you have on all these channels is not right, right? So in the sense that, like, you as a owner or a marketing person should visualize the path in terms of, okay, if a customer comes to my website, they should do X, Y, and Z. They should either um, be able to place an order, or provide their email ID, subscribe to specials, and so on and so forth, right? And at the same time, Google also provides, and Facebook also provides with Pixel and Google Analytics in terms of remarketing and all those kind of things. So obviously, you want to make sure that when you're remarketing to these people, they have shown some interest, in the sense that end of the day, I come to the site and I bounce off in 2 seconds. You don't want to remarket to that person, because that clearly shows that I am not the right customer. Whereas let's assume another person, if they are actually are there, and they went through the site, and they basically checked a couple of other things, and that means they are interested, and once you start remarketing to them, they are more likely to purchase from you, right? So you need to visualize the path. You need to understand what are the threshold limits for a customer that is making them buy or not buy, and lower the barriers for not buying, and also make sure that the number of people who are buying from you or taking that action increases, right? Again, that is where you're defining your strategy comes into the play, right? In the sense that, let's assume, again, we talked about the acquisition, post acquisition, you want to actually send them an email and try to find out how their experience was, and so on and so forth, and if they would refer their friends and family. It's a classic example, right? Like, whenever you call whenever you call a customer care number, most of the times you might actually get like a text message saying that, hey, how was your experience, and would you actually refer, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you refer our services or product to others, right? Same thing that can be done at for even for small businesses as well. So we have actually this product called Critique, which sends out an email, an automated email after the purchase is done, and the same can be implemented for in-store purchases as well. And based on the feedback, you will know whether this customer is happy or not, and whether they're going to actually come back. And if they are not going to come back, what can you make sure to what can you do to make sure that they come back, kind of a thing, right? So again, at each of these stages, we talked about, like, right, in the sense, once you visualize your path, you kind of come up with a strategy which basically um, um, says that this is the kind of message that you want to convey at each of these stages, because it resonates well at each stage. A customer, if you visualize this one, like a customer who has made a purchase and you want them to convert into a loyalty customer, is not the same kind of a message that you want to convey if they're the awareness stage, right? In the sense that a person who has already made the purchase, he or she knows what your product is, how your service is. So that means you need to reiterate the fact that, hey, they made a good decision of coming to your restaurant, for example, right? And that they actually had a very good time, and also thank them for coming, and saying that, hey, kind of provide them a bounce back coupon, saying that, hey, do you want to come back next time within the next 5-10 days, and here is a coupon. Or you just tell them thank you very much for coming back, and we hope to see you soon, kind of a thing, right? And if you actually kind of personalize the service at this point of time, saying that, hey, how was your waffles with chicken, or how was your pizza, gluten-free pizza, and so on and so forth, right? So that you would know that the customer feels that, hey, this particular business is they take care of me, and they're also like kind of like personalizing the service so that I'm more prone to become a loyalty customer. Like, again, based on each stage, your strategy in terms of messaging, execution, the metrics that you actually look for, all these things actually change, right? Again, we talked about this A2A model. At each stage, again, we have been reiterating the same fact that what you do at awareness is completely different from what you do at the advocacy level, right? At each of this stage, right? So we right now we talked about going back to the earlier from an agenda perspective. We talked about what is a customer journey, and we are right now talking about what kind of strategies that we need to look, and like what kind of data that we need to actually look at each of these stages, right? So here, like from at each stage, as we are talking, right, you would get some kind of you would actually get some kind of metrics that you had to focus on. Again, for example, let's take awareness as an example. In this case, it's more like you're casting a wide net, and the philosophy here is that you would like to know more about, or you would like people to know about your brand. So that means your metrics are around eyeballs, impressions, right, reach, and all those kind of things. So that means uh, based on your budget, you should be able to choose the kind of channels you want, and obviously based on the customer profiles also. Like let's assume this way, right? Like if you are a small business owner, so your profiles or your customers actually would live within the 3 to 5 mile radius. So that means using channels like radio or TV might not work. Again, people might be seeing that as in within the 3 to 5 mile radius, but the radio would actually have a bigger, wider audience, wherein you would be spending a couple of $1,000, whereas the returns on that would be low, right? So again, depending upon the kind of channels, depending upon the kind of product you're selling, you should basically look for the right kind of metrics to focus on at each stage, right? And then based on that, again, you will start looking at the different platforms, right? Like, for example, we talked about like, hey, okay, we have the customer personas that we have defined, and we know which are the different touch points that they actually come through when interacting with the brand. And based on that one, what are the different platforms that we actually have to start exploring, right? We just talked about like instead of if you're a restaurant owner, then doing maybe like a targeted social media marketing, email campaigns, working with the local organizations to create co-marketing activities, and so on and so forth. Those would actually be a better option, working with the local nonprofits, than spending a couple of $1,000s on TV ads and radio ads and billboard banners. Again, don't get me wrong, these would work, but the return on investment when you compare with these mass marketing channels would be lower when you can spend the same $2,000 on some other ad campaigns and get better results, right? And so we're talking about this awareness stage, right? Specifically in terms of who your target audience is, and how can I reach my target audience, right? We just talked about like how can we go about targeting them in terms of the appropriate channels. Instead of, again, we talked about mass media platforms. You can still go with them, provided if you have multiple platforms. Like, for example, we have had chains where they have actually done hoardings, and they've actually done radio ads, and billboards and all those kind of things, right? So we have actually worked with small mom and pop stores where the focus is very, very microscopic, in the sense that our target audience was within the 3 to 5 mile radius, whereas we also work with national chains wherein we were targeting the entire cities, and there the reach is basically about, okay, if I can spend an ad on the TV, or if I put a billboard, and which would cost me $5,000, but there are so many people who are actually driving by that particular billboard, and so my returns are, when quantified in terms of the number of people exposed to the brand, um, that would work out, right? Again, depending upon your budget, your customer profile, and your strategy in terms of like what you want to do, your executions in terms of, hey, am I going to do search engine, or am I going to do remarketing, or a combination of influencer marketing and all those kind of things. So, for example, recently we have worked with a local Italian place where a foodie came to our restaurant, and to our client's restaurant, and we have actually seen quite a bit of response in terms of, we have actually fed a family of 4, and but in terms of the number of people who have actually interacted with the brand, and people who have become fans to our page, they have shown very good results. So here our cost is basically feeding a family of 4, and the returns that we have actually got are pretty high when compared with the cost there, right? The metrics in this stage, again, from an awareness point of view, are more to do with, again, the reach, how many people are getting exposed to the brand. So in terms of, so the likes, the impressions, and all those kind of things are the ones that we actually look for in the awareness stage, right? So now that we are actually, again, as a marketing person, your ultimate goal is to take one prospective customer and make that customer into an advocate for the brand. So that means your strategy should be in such a way that, okay, let's assume this way, I'm showing ad 1 to this particular prospective customer. The prospective customer is very interested in my ad because I have shown him something which he or she is looking for. Let's take this example of, let's say, the family of 4, and they are actually looking for a gluten-free plus a kids meal free, right? So that means they are looking for that one, and they want to go to the next stage, which is basically the engagement stage. So how can they actually get this particular coupon, a gluten-free pizza plus a kids meal free kind of a thing, right? So that means when you show that message, they are going to the next phase of engagement, which is what you have to prepare for, in the sense that, like, just saying that we have the best pizza in the world, it doesn't mean, it does mean something for some people, but for this particular family it doesn't mean anything, because they are actually looking for a gluten-free pizza plus a value meal kind of a thing, right? So based on that one, because I am able to kind of hone in on that particular customer or that particular family, because I know they are actually looking for this, based on the customer profile, my should basically be saying that if I show this ad to them, they are more likely to click on that ad and give their information, because I would be able to kind of target them, right? So that is where your next engagement comes into play, right? In the sense that, like, how can I pick the interest of a potential customer so that they are they engage in a two-way conversation with me as a brand? The awareness is basically me blasting it out. Engagement is where the customer is interested and they start the two-way conversation, and the two-way conversation would basically lead to the acquisition part, right? So here the question is the engagement, in the sense that how can you start making sure that the customer is basically starting back to me again. It's the same usual platforms, because online platforms provide you with a lot more data, ability to keep track of a particular customer coming back, if they're coming for the first time, for nth time, and so on and so forth. So obviously Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel provides these, and you should be able to based on this come up with different strategies, in the sense again, like okay, am I able to engage with the customer, what is the bounce back rate, and all those kind of things that you need to look into. And at the same time, you need to make sure that um, am I providing the right information in all the channels. And obviously we have given that plethora of listings of directories and all those kind of things, you need to make sure that you are properly listed on all these, including the review sites and everything like that, right? And making sure that it's the touch points that you actually have are very relevant, in the sense that I have seen n number of times where your open hours are completely different from one platform to another platform, leading to customers walking into the door and they're seeing that the restaurant is closed, whereas it's not shown it that way, right? And obviously you need to make sure that when the engagement comes into play, right, that means the customer is actually looking for information on your side. You need to provide the right relevant information at the right time. So that's what it is all about, in the sense that like the strategy should basically be saying that, okay, now they're coming to my restaurant, or I would say to my social media page or to my website. Like for example, let's take Valentine's Day. So are you providing the right Valentine information, or do you have any deals around Valentine's and all those kind of things, right? So you have to start like promoting. Again, it is relevant at this point of time because people are looking for deals around Valentine's Day. So there's no point of saying Happy New Year at this point of time, right? Obviously, it is very classic. It's very easy to understand, and but we have seen many times that the right information is not being provided at the right time, at the right channel. Thereby, when a customer is interested and they go to the website and they see that, hey, they are still saying Happy New Year or something like that, whereas the relevant message it has to be Valentine's special, right? So that's the kind of thing that you need to make sure. Again, the strategy should around be, if you know that the customer is walking into the door, how can you make sure at this stage, the engagement stage, that they go to the next stage of purchasing? So that means they have to provide more information to you. They have to like your page. They have to give their email ID, right? They can actually create like creating like a birthday club and all those kind of things. So these are some of the strategies that you need to engage in, so that the customer can, again, at this stage, make sure that the customer is giving something back to the brand, because you can use this something like the customer information for you to target them, to push them to the next stage, right? Again, the metrics in here is you need to see how many people are actually coming to your website, how many people are actually clicking on your content on social media pages, right? And if you're actually doing any campaigns like let's assume the USPS EDDM. Obviously, here you can directly correlate as to, like, if you send 1,000 cards, how many people are actually walking into the door. That itself relates to the fact that if that is the acquisition phase, but also do you see a spike in number of people who are visiting your website when you send the USPS postal mails and all those kind of things as well. So once you identify these metrics, then you need to prepare for the next stage, which is basically taking them to the acquisition phase, right? In the sense that, like we talked about, this classic example of like a family with kids and gluten-free constraint. So how can I make them, now that the family knows that the you as a pizza place has some gluten-free options, now is it possible for you to push them to the acquisition phase? Now the question here is, can you push them when they see the message? So that means it's an instantaneous a decision that they have to do, or can you push them at a later date? For example, let's assume that if they come to this your website and they actually see that there's actually a free birthday module or something like that, so on their birthday they're going to come to your store as an acquisition. Or can you make sure that, and obviously at this point of time you need to actually know as to how many touch points a customer has to have with you. I'm not aware of statistics, but based on our knowledge, what we have seen is at least you need to have 4 or 5 instances or 4 or 5 touch points before they actually make the acquisition, or basically make the decision of making the first purchase, right? So you need to provide them different platforms so that they can actually make the purchase, right? In the sense like, hey, are you available on, like if you're a restaurant owner, are you available on different platforms like or Uber Eats, like and on all the different platforms, so that anyone can go to the platform and make a purchase on your own website as well, online ordering. Is it easy for them to make a call to you and make the purchase? Again, there are a lot of people who actually make the calls and rather than going online, and that trend is actually changing. Or can they actually walk into the store? Is your store like readily and accessible to make the purchase? And also the purchase has to be very seamless, like in the sense that you should not ask them to go through hoops. Like if you have a coupon, it has to be a simple coupon wherein you say click here to get the coupon. It's not that they have to click here, go there, and download a coupon, take this coupon to the store, and redeem it, and then they'll say, "Hey, I don't know about this coupon," and all those kind of things, right? So the transition between engagement to acquisition has to be seamless, and you as a owner, you have to provide multiple opportunities, like including social media buying, including online purchases, phone calls, or other multiple channels, and so on and so forth, right? Like if you're like, let's assume sending out like an email, you should basically be able to say click here to make a purchase. It's not that like they have to open another link and then they go to another link and a third link and so on and so forth, right? Obviously, these are the kind of strategies that you are actually have to say, right? Hey, are you providing them that ability to pay online? All right. Can you actually create some offers which resonate well with the customer so that they can actually make the purchase? Again, bear in mind when we talk about this A to A model, even though it shows like a linear model, technically speaking, it's more like a circular, in the sense that from awareness to advocacy to acquisition, sorry, awareness to engagement to acquisition to loyalty to advocacy. Again, advocacy will actually lead to awareness, right? So that means you need to make sure that whatever strategies you are adopting at each stage, that pushes a customer from stage 1 to stage 2, and so on and so forth, so that you can actually get the benefits in terms of, like, again, in terms of the better ROI and increased revenues and decreased costs and so on and so forth, right? So the metrics here are, the plain metrics in the acquisition stage would basically be, are your revenues increasing? That's as simple as that. But within that, are you actually seeing repeat purchases? Are you seeing the frequency of purchases increasing? Are you seeing the average ticket cost? Is it increasing, right? And in terms of the number of people who are actually eating there and so on and so forth, right? So there are a lot of like metrics in terms of like the number of online orders increasing. That means you should be able to get more data in there, right? And how many coupons are being used, and which, based on the coupons, you know that which marketing campaigns and all those kind of things are actually working, right? So now again, we talked about like making sure that the customer is actually making a purchase. Again, if you take as a restaurant, and which is our main focus, we know that we want people to we want basically people to have good times at a restaurant. So that is the experience which matters. So that means you need to make sure that you have the right food, great customer service, and pleasant ambience. So these three things actually make the dining experience unique. And if it is unique, they're going to actually become a loyal customer. Let's take this breakfast place. If I want to go out to eat a breakfast, then I will start thinking about this because, hey, the customer service is awesome, and that is reflected in the number of reviews that the place gets and the kind of employees they have, because they offer awesome customer service and so on and so forth, right? So at this point of time, you would actually have data points about the customer so that you can kind of, the personalization would come into play at this point of time. So when I actually go to a restaurant next time, I would know that, hey, these people know me, kind of a thing. Like we have seen in one case, what they have done is a very simple logic, in the sense that if they know that a customer is loyal, so the kind of napkins they give to these people are different, or the kind of the table numbers they actually give is completely different, so that they would know that these are the customers who are actually coming back. So that the staff would know that these are loyal customers and they have to be treated in such a way, right? So here is, like, again, the Pareto's principle, right? Like 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers. So that means those are the loyal customers. You need to take care of them, and you need to make sure that you increase this pool of loyalty customers to have more number of loyalty customers, right? Again, the platforms for you to the messaging that actually happens at this point of time is more personalization. You, like, for example, if you know this family for gluten-free and value meals, you need to send messages about saying that, hey, we have this gluten-free pizza, by the way, kids meal is free, or buy one two get one free. Those kind of offers that you need to actually make sure. And the strategies are, again, there has to be incentives for people to come back to you often, in the sense that, hey, if I'm actually coming back to you next time, accrue some XYZ points and you will get something, or you will basically be entered into a raffle for loyal customers, or you would actually get some kind of promotions and all those kind of things, right? Again, the metrics in here is simple in terms of, like, obviously revenue numbers from these set of customers, revenue numbers in terms of, like, per average is the number of average order ticket, is it increasing, the number of loyalty customers, are they increasing, and so on and so forth, right? So you need to make sure that the right kind of metrics are chosen. And from for us, it's not, loyalty is not, again, like, if I'm a customer for a particular business, me going to that business repeatedly is the best, is a good thing. But for us, the way we do at M Connect is we want to make sure that the customers are actually getting their friends as well, because word of mouth, that by far is the most effective awareness tool that you have in your arsenal. And you want to make sure that you have the right platforms that you actually provide to your customers to refer your brand to their friends and family. And obviously, you need to ask as to why should a customer refer me, and how can they refer me. So there has to be some incentive for the customers to refer me to them, as well as to their friends. And that is where the referral policy comes into play, right? And we have actually a module called Grito, which will enable this process, wherein we can identify how loyal a customer is, and how many friends are coming into the door because of this particular customer, and so on and so forth. So if you look at it at our mConnect platform, wherein we have developed these different modules in terms of from across these awareness to the advocacy case stages, wherein we are saying that we have this birthday module, or the loyalty program analytics, and all those kind of things that will help you as a restaurant owner to kind of order as a marketing person to actually implement this, to get different data sets from at each stage and use these data sets to kind of fine tune your marketing, right? Um, Again, as we said, the A2A model for us is very key because it will help us to get the right data at the right time so that we can execute the right marketing strategies in terms of better ROI. So that actually is the end of the this one. We do again have, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to email us at marketing@mconnect.com. But here, I think we have 5 more minutes left. If you have any questions, feel free to ask here or send us an email at marketing@mconnect.com. And we will be more than glad to talk to you about our platform, or have any questions about customer engagement, or how you can actually use any of these tools, like the one we were actually talking about in terms of either the 4Q platform or coupons or loyalty program and so on and so forth. All right. I'm assuming there are no questions at this point of time. Again, in the last few slides, I've kind of rushed through, but I wanted to make sure that we actually connect through these stages, right? Like, again, we talked about what is customer journey, what are the different as in like strategies that one actually has to adopt at these ones, and also the data that you would actually get at each of these stages, in the sense of the metrics that we talked about as we walk through the different strategies. Again, bear in mind the metrics that you get at each of this stage are very, very critical, because it will actually help you understand whether your marketing strategies are working, and they have to be fine-tuned, and if you need to basically focus on one set of strategies that are working well. All right, thank you everyone for attending this, and we would actually have this presentation on our YouTube channel under mConnect, so you can actually see this webinar again at your own convenience. Again, if you have any questions with regards to our company mConnect or any of our products, or if you would like to talk anything specific to how we can help you, feel free to reach us out at the marketing@mconnect.com or 619 Connect. That is 619-566-6358. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we will be actually having the next webinar again in March. That's our monthly webinar. The topic would be around customer. Again, it's around customer engagement, and what are the different strategies that you need to adopt in terms of getting more engagement from the customers. All right. Thank you.